Welcome back to The Burn with Ryan Van Dieber, presented to you by Hot Zone Sports. The information that you need to know, built with you in mind, for the people, by the people, and with the people. Make sure you like the videos, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you've not followed us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all of our social media, go ahead and do so. And if you have not subscribed to our YouTube, do that as well. Click that notification bell. That way you don't miss a single episode of my podcast, along with all the shorts that we post. Now, let's get right into it. I haven't really gotten that much into detail about the Colorado Buffaloes since their loss to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, I feel like this is as good a time as any to go and dive right into the ins and outs of the Buffalo program. Not the game itself, but what I saw before, during, and after the game. One thing you didn't see last season in any Colorado Buffalo game was dejection. But in this game, it was clear as day. Travis Hunter alone, I saw on the sideline looking like he was just completely fed up and disgusted with everything that was going on. This was towards the end of the game, after the Buffaloes were thoroughly dominated by the Cornhuskers. The thing about last year's team was they had this energy about them. You know, you could see some cracks in the armor throughout the season. You know, having a 4-8 season would do that to you. But you could see the cracks in the armor with the coaching staff and whatnot. But when it came to the players, they were always hyped to play. They always had that energy about them, that swag that was intoxicating. And that's what drew many fans to the team last year. Now, they had a rough 4-win season last year, but there weren't any of the kinks in the armor, so to speak. You didn't really hear about any negativity coming from the locker room, at least not until the offseason, when everybody saw the Twitter war that went on with Deion Sanders, Deion Sanders, and others. I'm sure you saw it as well. But now there are reports coming out that there could possibly be a fractured locker room. And if it isn't fractured yet, there's a high probability that comes season end, it could be. They are not going to have a very successful season. If you cannot see that by their game against North Dakota State and against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, well, let me tell you, it's not going to be very successful. They can't run the game. They can't run the ball. They have a horrible offensive line. Their defensive secondary might actually be worse than last season. You basically have two players carrying the entire team. That's not an element for success. So they're not going to have a very successful season. I mean, I think the betting odds right now are for the win total is sitting at 4.5. They had 4 wins last season. They're probably going to have 4 wins this season. If you actually look at their schedule, there are not a lot of wins left on their schedule. Now, they have Colorado State this week. They have Baylor coming up. So, I don't know. Maybe the coaching staff can draw something up and maybe a miracle will happen. But I think that might be a bit moronic to think that way. Now, I get asked a lot of questions on my social media pages. Why do so many people care about Colorado? I get comments and I get sent messages. Why are you posting this? Nobody cares. You see comments. Nobody cares. Well, to put it simply, His name is Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders has the swag. He has the energy. Yes, everything a new age football player would want. He's got them crispy uniforms. The only problem is that he is not winning games. So what evidence is there that Deion Sanders has been great? Well, let's get into that. Deion Sanders could lock down an entire side of the field. He also brought swag to the NFL and Major League Baseball, alongside being a pop culture icon when he played Major League Baseball. Every interview he has, it's just, he takes it to a whole nother level. It's absolutely amazing. And he is just an iconic figure. But then he retires from the NFL and he becomes a family man. Much respect. He becomes a leader, a godly man. Now, you believe that Deion will win at whatever Deion decides to do. But what is going to happen with Colorado? Travis Hunter is going to get drafted high. Shedeur Sanders is going to get drafted high as well. Probably both will be gone in the first 10 picks, if not sooner. And Deion Sanders is more than likely going to walk away tens of millions of dollars richer than he was when he got there. Now, I know he said he's going to stay at Colorado. He's not going to coach in the NFL, but he very may well not coach in the NFL. But is he going to stay another season? Is he going to have is he going to stay another 4-8 season? It's kind of hard to see. Now, last season, viewership for the Colorado Buffaloes, well, they hit a jackpot. He drew an average of 7.2 million viewers. It was on ESPN, Fox, and he was selling out home game tickets after a long, long wait in Boulder. Now, prior to this, Boulder had a 1-win season, and they were probably one of the worst teams in all of college football. Now, this season so far, they've continued that streak, where home tickets were bought out within minutes of the website going live. This is called the prime effect. A 51% jump in revenue generated through multimedia is just one of the tangible observations from Coach Prime's time in Boulder. Another one was 5 Colorado players snagging a spot in ESPN's top 25 watch college football players list. But the ripples of the prime effect are starting to wither a little bit. Shedeur Sanders is going to go to the NFL, and Travis Hunter will go to the NFL as well. Deion Sanders will win the question of whether or not Colorado will be markedly better off after Deion Sanders leaves, because the financial. Talking about on the football field, and I don't think Colorado will be markedly better. When Deion leaves, Colorado will go back to the program they were before he arrived. A paltry program with little to no talent, resting at the bottom of the conference standings. And you can't say when he was at Jackson State, who won 2 conference titles, that he wasn't successful, or he couldn't be successful in the group before. He thought that he would be able to build a program over just transfers at Colorado and not recruiting. And that has been his biggest misstep so far. Him and Matt Rule, coach in Nebraska, they came into their programs at the same time. Now, you could argue that Nebraska has built a winning culture up to this point more than Colorado has. I know, it's only 2 games in, but you can see it. Transparency is important. And body language is important. You can see it on the field. Colorado basically had fool's gold last season when they beat the Huskers just due to the fact that Nebraska turned the ball over way too many times. So you're going to win that game. You're going to win any game pretty much for the most part if you win the turnover battle. Colorado ended up losing 28-10. And if you look at the score, you would think that it was a pretty competitive game. I mean, you would say that, Nebraska pulled away, right? Wrong. You would be completely wrong in that assessment. Colorado got completely demolished. Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes have proven to the entire college football world that they can be noticed. They can create headlines. But one thing they haven't been able to do is build a winning culture, build a sustainable program. And I'm not sure how long Deion Sanders is going to stay around coaching a team that is below average at best, that can consistently win at that level. It's just a fact. There are all kinds of guys, right? Like, for example, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. He has shown that he is a solid young coach, but he ends up losing probably one of the weirdest games you'll ever see against Northern Illinois. And they always have a game like this every single year. They lost to Marshall. They lost to 3-9 Stanford. And at this point, you got to wonder, what is it about this guy's process and preparation at this point? Brian Kelly at the LSU Tigers. They come out stagnant and flat at the beginning of the season every single year. And they lose big games when the lights are the brightest. You wonder, not that Brian Kelly can't be a successful coach, because he's one of the more successful coaches of his generation. But what is it about these guys whose process and preparation to where they lose in situations like these, or they can't just get over the hump in situations like this, and Deion Sanders doesn't even have close to the accolades or the winning percentage of these two guys that I just referenced. But if we're asking those questions about those guys, we're certainly going to ask questions about Deion Sanders. There was a point when he was at Jackson State where he just looked untouchable. All of the top programs in college football that needed a head coach, he was their top guy. He was their top target. I mean, he ended up getting Travis Hunter to go to Jackson State, the number one recruit in that class, instead of him going to Florida State. So you thought that type of coach you were getting was a program builder. That hasn't been the case, and it's been quite opposite, if anything. But now it's ultimately looking like he can do less with more. Every week, all eyes are on Colorado. In the financial aspect, they have been highly successful. There's no doubt about it. So they have the resources to get the job done, but they just can't get the job done for whatever reason it may be. It doesn't look like he's going to have the institutional consistency. I mean, I'm not saying that's true to year two, but I'm saying the team is not just, the team is losing. They lose, and they lose at fundamentals of football. I mean, really, outside of the opening game loss, and that's a win that they really needed to start off their season with. And then you lose in Nebraska. I mean, It's really as bad as it gets. But like if you look at the results on the field, he hasn't proven that he's a great coach at this level. It's just a fact. The Bills and the Dolphins had a game last night. I'm not sure if you guys knew that. So let's talk about it. Everybody knows Tua Tagovailoa struggles against his individual rival, the Buffalo Bills. So it came as no surprise when Tua threw 3 picks last night. He ended up getting a concussion in the game, which is a bigger problem in itself, but something that needs to be talked about is he signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with $167 million guaranteed. Now he has to be better than this. Those 3 interceptions by the third quarter pretty much destroyed any chances the Dolphins had of even making this a competitive game, yet winning it. He had just a horrible game as a quarterback. Then, of course, you have the concussion. 4th down in the red zone. He runs for it on 4th down. He already has the 4th down conversion by a few yards, and he lowers his head, and he gets hit by DeMar Hamlin. Then you have the players on the field calling for the medical staff to rush out of the field. It was a crazy scene. I know the reporter on the field said 6 minutes after the injury, it was determined that Tua suffered a concussion. This is the guy who was responsible for getting the NFL to change their concussion policy to begin with. For some odd reason, Tua just doesn't play well when he has to play the Buffalo Bills. It's just one of those teams that just gets the best of him most of the time. Peyton Manning had one of those teams. They were the New England Patriots. It's just one of those teams. But now, the Buffalo Bills haven't really impressed me that much. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, they beat a Cardinals team that isn't even a top 15 team right now. And now the Dolphins, who I see as a bubble team, to use a college football term, the Bills basically had this game in hand midway through the third quarter when Skylar Thompson came into the game for Tua. The Bills had 247 yards of offense. That's 5.5 yards per play against the defense for the Dolphins team that's rebuilding. All right. I know the Bills didn't have to do much because of the lead they had, but they were 3 for 9 on 3rd down, 108 yards rushing. The defensive touchdown was nice. The 2 for 2 in the red zone was nice too. But props to the Bills for getting out of Miami with a win. But to me, I wasn't impressed with the victory. I know a win is a win, and you don't get extra wins for impressive victories. I get that. But their schedule coming up doesn't say the Bills are going to run through it. If anything, it could be the opposite. As for the Dolphins, they have Seahawks, Titans, Patriots, Colts, all coming up. All winning games. But if Skylar Thompson is playing over Tua, I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. 2 weeks into the season, Jordan Love and Tua have both been hurt. 2 top 15 quarterbacks. Now, I heard on Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre where he was talking about Tua, how he should consider retirement, with this being his 3rd concussion. I also read somewhere else where he's had 5 concussions. So you don't know really which one to accept. But he's made his money, and he says now it's time for him to get out. The question here should be if the NFL should get involved and if they are going to let him play again. Roger Goodell was at this game. I know for a fact that he does not like seeing franchise quarterbacks laying on the ground like that. I mean, all you have to do is look back till Steve Young when he last played. Yes, I'm dating myself a little bit, whatever. But you have to know when to hang them up. And I understand Steve Young was older when that happened to him. And Tua is only 26 years old. But his concussions are becoming more recurrent. So when is the NFL going to say enough is enough? But if you saw the hit, then you saw that he could have slid. The video of him not sliding is going to be shown to every quarterback in the NFL. You have to protect yourself. You can't put yourself in those situations. That may be extreme to say, but 2 years ago, he had that knockout on live TV where his arms shot up. And now this. After these 2 games, it feels like this season is officially over for the Miami Dolphins. Now, I am fully prepared to never see Tua Tagovailoa play football again. The looks you got to see on the telecast on Amazon where Mike McDaniel was just in a state of shock. And you had Stephen Ross, much of the same from him, if not worse. Maybe it's the realization that it's over. We won't know, but it's not something you like to see. But what we do know is that Tua just got extended a massive contract, and you have to believe that there is going to be a big push from the league to never let him play for the Dolphins ever again. Because at this point, it just isn't safe. And another thing is you don't see too many other quarterbacks having issues like this. The visuals that we have of him getting injured are just grotesque, and we don't see that in the league very often. And for the longest time, you would see injuries like this. Young, Montana, Aikman, the list goes on and on. Now, then about 10 to 15 years ago, with the concussions and the lawsuits, the NFL pivoted and went into an opposite direction. That's why just a couple of years ago, people would be in a state of shock when a team would send out their player after a said concussion. It just didn't feel safe. I think it's fair to say that we aren't going to see Tua for a while. Is he going to retire? I don't know. He's just 26 years old. And it's going to be hard to walk away from a contract that he just signed. Now, I understand he has some guaranteed money, and you have the taxes in Florida, so you have that on your side. But once again, he's 26 years old, and he won't be 27 until March. But he's not going to be just like a random player who got a concussion. You know, you clear concussion protocol and you're sent back out on the field. He's going to be out for a while between the pressure from the NFL, the fans, the media. He is not going to be coming back soon. Is he done with the NFL, though? I don't know. I've seen crazier things happen. Remember Damar Hamlin? He died on the field after a cardiac arrest, and now he's a starter for the Bills. Never say never. One conversation that I believe is going to come up is Tom Brady to the Dolphins. It's only natural. Remember a couple of years ago when he was in New England and there was chatter? And there was tampering stuff with all that. It would be a cool story, but I don't think it's going to happen. He's older. He's calling games now, and he's not a cheap broadcaster. He costs like $37 million to call games. Obviously, the first game didn't go as well as he'd imagined, but I would be shocked if he left the booth. But I'll bite. Let's say there was interest in him coming back. For one, the fit is absolutely putrid. The offensive line is ridiculously bad to start with, and now there's injuries mounting, so you can put that rumor to rest. If anything, the Dolphins are going to go after a practice squad guy, make a trade, or even sign Ryan Tannehill as a free agent. But as it stands right now, the season is in question, as it should be, because you just lost your franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. So the Dolphins have a lot of questions to answer. But before the injury, they were just getting demolished. It just was a hard game to watch. One player is going to have a huge effect on the Bills. It's James Cook. He just looks great. He looked great last week. He looked great last season. And again, he looked great in this game. For everything that can be said about Josh Allen, there has been a missing element to that offense, and James Cook is filling that role perfectly. For so many years, the Bills were pass-centric with Allen at the helm, but now they have Cook that can add to the rushing attack and make it viable. It's what was missing when they lost the Chiefs a few years back. Common knowledge is that in order to have a team to go far in the playoffs, you're going to need a running game, especially in those cold temperature climates. Now, they can travel to Arrowhead in January. Can they beat the Chiefs? No, they can't beat the Chiefs. Their roster isn't deep enough, and their defense just isn't good enough. But unlike many teams, they have a championship-type culture, something that you beg to have for any organization. And when you have Josh Allen on your team, you have a shot in any game. I look at him and see a championship quarterback. Hasn't won one yet, maybe never will. But he has that pedigree. But I do see the Bills taking this division for the 5th straight time this year. They're going through a Patriots / Tom Brady type of deal controlling this division. The only difference is the Bills can't get over that championship hump. It's kind of hard to do when you have Mahomes in your way, to be honest. But the Bills are chasing the Chiefs, not anyone in their division. Definitely not the Jets, whose biggest issue is their culture, and it is not a championship culture. I feel a lot stronger about the Bills right now than I did at the beginning of the season, and it's a great story for Damar Hamlin, along with Joe Brady, resurrecting his career. Just a little news flash, he got fired from Carolina when he was coaching under Matt Rule. Then he gets hired from the Bills as the quarterback coach. Then Dorsey gets fired. And now he's the offensive coordinator. And so far, it has been a seamless transition. But the Bills look good. Now, if you haven't figured it out yet, I am a Colts fan. So, in this segment, we will be discussing the Colts and the Packers game. The Indianapolis Colts and the Green Bay Packers are going to square off at Lambeau Field on Sunday at noon, just in case you guys wanted to know. Both of these teams are 0-1, but one of these teams is going to get that win on Sunday. Now, the Packers will most likely be doing this without star quarterback Jordan Love. At the same time, the Colts have their own injuries. Losing starting quarterback Juju Brents to a knee injury this week, while starting safety Julian Blackmon is going to sit out with a shoulder injury. The same shoulder injury he had last year. Malik Willis will be starting his first game for the Packers while only being on the team for 2 weeks. Now, if he could pick a game to start, this would be top 5. DeForest Buckner is questionable, which means Taven Bryan could start next to Grover Stewart, which could spell even more problems for the Colts' run defense against another top running back in Josh Jacobs. Malik Willis, for all he is, he has plenty of faults. But one thing that he does have to compensate is a plethora of weapons at his disposal. That being said, the Colts still have their pass rush, and with Gus Bradley's game plan, you should expect a large amount of quarterback pressures throughout the game, something that bothered Willis when he played for the Titans. Granted, he only started 3 games. You should expect the pressures to bring mistakes to Willis. The official injury report came out a little while ago. As you know, Julian Blackmon has been ruled out. DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, and Josh Downs are all questionable. Now, Matt Gay is back, the kicker for the Colts. It's worth he missed last week's game, and then for Green Bay, they've got a few guys questionable. Jordan Love, Marshawn Lloyd, and Jaden Reed. I think Love, it feels like a little bit of gamesmanship at this point from Green Bay. He suffered the MCL sprain last week, and immediately everyone was like, probably not IR, but he's going to miss a little bit of time. He doesn't practice this week, but he's still listed as questionable, probably just to try and keep the Colts guessing, even though they have been preparing for Malik Willis the entire week. But yeah, for the Colts, this defense, it was a group that already gave up 200 rushing yards last week. They did not have a great day, and now some of their best players have a big fat question mark next to them. All offseason, the worst case scenario for the Colts this year would have been any type of injury to Juju Brents or Julian Blackmon. Like even one of those guys missing some time with injury could spell bad news for the Colts team. And with how weak their secondary is, now we're week 2. We have no more Juju Brents for the majority, if not all of the season. And Julian Blackmon is out with the same injury he had late last season. I don't think it's a long-term injury for Julian Blackmon, but I don't know why we would not bring in L'Jarius Sneed or Justin Simmons. You don't even have to bring in these guys in particular. You can bring in guys that won't have that game-changing type ability if you want to pay them less. But you still need to add depth to the secondary, but Chris Ballard decided not to go that route and felt like he was content with everything in-house, and now the Colts are in a very sticky situation to where they are extremely thin in the secondary. They should have brought in some veteran leadership, at the least, but instead they're stuck with Womack versus Dallas Flowers. And now you're bringing in Ronnie Harrison to start at safety when he hasn't even been on the roster. He wasn't even on a roster last week. They're lucky that they're playing Malik Willis this week, to be honest, and not a regular starting quarterback. Hell, not even Ryan Tannehill. He would torch the Colts at this point. But the Colts, they could have easily brought somebody in on a $2 to $2.5 million deal to add depth or just even veteran leadership, as I said. But now they're stuck. They're stuck with their secondary with a target painted on their backs. But I am okay with the Colts saying we like who we have. But it doesn't mean you don't add insurance to that group. Because what the Colts are doing right now is they are putting all of their eggs in one basket. Especially all the eggs in one basket with Juju Brents, who has not at any point been 100% since the Colts drafted him. He's always had something to deal with, and Julian Blackmon has never played a full season. So you put your eggs in that basket as well. Yeah, I mean, Blackmon, let's just say he's not going to be out for very long because that is the expectation. You really want to be reliant on those guys' health who have never been healthy, and the outlook, yeah, I mean, no. The answer is no. Let's move on to the Colts offense for this game. Obviously, the main objective for this game is going to be establishing the ground game. You're going to want to be dominant on the ground and get Jonathan Taylor going a little bit. Like, it doesn't need to be beast mode Jonathan Taylor from a few years ago. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be 150 yards rushing in this game either. But you just need to get him more productive. He needs to have more than 38 rushing yards in this game. You have to be more efficient on your ground game. And then just building some kind of layups into your offense or some sort of quick hitters or easy answers for your offense. Now, from what I understand, with the Packers defense, they don't blitz a ton. But when they do blitz, it's a lot of nickel pressures, a lot of bringing corners and faster players. So the Colts got to have their outlets. I want to see Shane Steichen give more answers to his young quarterback in those situations. I know last week some of it was Richardson just keeping his eyes down the field for far too long and doing it far too often, but a lot of it is just him relying too much on stagnation in the short game, and I'd rather have some more moving parts, more motion, more wide receiver screens, more RPOs, more RPRs to get the pocket moving a little bit. The play action game was great. The deep passing game was great. Intermediate was all right. Those are great. So the Colts need to build on that. The Colts need to have some more consistency with their drives. They need 8, 9, 10 play touchdown drives. And I mean, you look at the 2 touchdown drives, they're great and everything. But sometimes you need to establish your will a little bit and just drain a defense like the Texans were able to do against the Colts last week. So I just want to see some shoring up right there on the Colts offense. The start was good last week for the Colts, but they need to make it a little bit cleaner this week, a little bit more consistent. And I think the Colts offense can score on just about any team, especially the Green Bay Packers this weekend. The Colts also need to get things going in their passing game with their running backs, Jonathan Taylor or Tyler Goodson. It was pretty stagnant last week. There weren't a lot of opportunities, and that's how you're going to get these 8 to 9 to 10 play drives started with short route passes to the running backs. You need to get them more involved. And that is one of the parts of Anthony Richardson's game that needs to be improved. This is accuracy on short passes and having more touch on said passes. We already know that he can sling it 60 yards. That was proven last week. We already know that he has the electric ability, but in order to consistently sustain these drives, he's going to have to work on these short to intermediate passes and add a little bit more touch on these passes as well. Something that's going to need improvement from Anthony Richardson is obviously the short and intermediate passes, but when there is a 3rd and 5 or a 3rd and 6 more likely than not, it's not going to be converted because Anthony Richardson isn't entirely efficient with his throws yet. So this is definitely something that is going to need to be improved on because of obvious passing situations. So the key for the Colts, just maintain offensive possessions, get into third and manageable, which is 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. It's insanely hard to stop this offense in those spots because of the type of quarterback that you have, the way he can run. Like he's a fullback, really. I mean, you have Jonathan Taylor. So you're going to have to get him more involved in the RPR game and the RPO game if you can get into those manageable parts of those field. There's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, when it's going to be hard to stop these RPO and RPRs. So the Colts are going to want to maintain possession of the football this week, win 1st and 2nd down, get into a manageable 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2 down to improve the overall success rate of the offense. And they'll be able to control the game and score more points. This game is expected by many to be a blowout in the Colts' favor. You've been seeing it all week. But I don't see it unfolding like that. Josh Jacobs is going to keep this game close, closer than many think. The defensive line issues for the Colts in itself will keep this game close. Joe Mixon ran all over the Colts last week. A big reason why they lost to the Texans in week 1, because the Colts could not stop that run attack. Colts defensive line is going to be a little weaker this week. You have DeForest Buckner being out for the Colts, and you're going to have to stack that box heavily in order to stop Josh Jacobs. You know, when they do, there's going to be open spots down the field. And if Malik Willis can complete these key passes down the field, they will make this game even more difficult for the Colts. But I see this game ultimately as a 30-23 win for the Colts. I just think that the Colts are going to have a very strong rushing attack, and they are going to have to focus on getting that running attack going. And then that is going to open up the pass for Anthony Richardson if he can control his mistakes and control his accuracy. Accuracy issues that I have, I don't believe or foresee that it's going to be a major problem in this game. I believe the Colts are going to come out victorious, and the Colts will leave Lambeau Field with a 1-1 record. Now that is going to be it for today's episode of The Burn. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you have not liked, subscribed my social media pages, Hot Zone Sports, we are on them all. Go ahead and like and subscribe. And on YouTube, click that bell and turn those notifications on. We're posting shorts just about every day, along with our YouTube multiple times a week. Thank you for your continued support. And until next time, Hot Zone Sports and The Burn out.